You know how when you open an app, everything feels alive now? Logos move, buttons bounce, text slides in across the screen. Spotify Wrapped turns your listening habits into a cinematic event. TikTok practically throws motion at your eyeballs every 2 seconds. Even the smallest app interactions have tiny animations built into them. And whether people have noticed it consciously or not, branding has changed. Static branding used to be enough. Now brands are expected to move. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people don't notice how massive the shift actually is. Because it's not designers just trying to make things look cool. This is an entire industry adapting to the way people consume now. So in this video, I want to talk about why every brand seems like they're using motion graphics right now, why motion-first branding is becoming the new normal, and why it really matters even if you're not a designer. Because once you start noticing this subtle shift, you start seeing branding completely differently. You will start noticing why certain apps kind of feel addictive, why certain branding feels modern, and why certain companies feel a little outdated, even if their logo looks good. And if you're a designer, a content creator, an artist, or someone trying to build a personal brand online, understanding this is genuinely important right now. Because we are entering an era where branding is no longer designed for walls. It is designed for screens, and more importantly, for scrolling. Okay, so let's start with something important. Traditional branding was built for a completely different world. When the most iconic branding systems we study were first created, we think about things like billboards, magazines, business cards, packaging, posters, storefronts, printed advertisements. RIP to that. Things needed to look good while sitting still. That was the job. And honestly, the greatest designers in history mastered this. A good static logo is timeless. It is clear, it communicates instantly. It works across multiple formats. But here's the problem. The internet changed the environment that branding lives in. Most people are not experiencing branding through print anymore. They are experiencing branding through things like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, app interfaces, smartphone streaming platforms, motion ads, interactive websites. Modern branding doesn't just live on the wall. It lives in motion, and you have to create something that's scroll stopping. And I think this is where a lot of designers start realizing, oh, static graphics aren't enough anymore. Because your audience is scrolling past hundreds of things per minute. Because movement is attention. Motion stops the scroll. And brands, they know that. And that's why right now we are seeing a huge explosion of animated logos, kinetic typography, micro interactions, and responsive interfaces, motion-based ads and interactive transitions, 3D movement and looping animations. Even minimal brands have started moving. And honestly, I mentioned Spotify because it is one of the best examples of this. Spotify branding doesn't just exist as a logo anymore. It exists as a behavior. It is motion branding. Think about Spotify Wrapped. Every year people wait like it's an event. And yes, the graphic design is amazing, but the motion design is what makes it feel immersive. The transitions, the pacing, the animated storytelling, that is extremely personal to you. And the way that even the statics move across the screen, it feels personal, it feels dynamic. It feels like it was made for sharing. And that's why it's such a strong form of branding. This is the perfect example that we have about modern branding. And the same thing happened with TikTok. TikTok's identity isn't just a logo, it's the energy, the movement, the transitions, the editing culture, the sound, the speed. The entire platform itself trained an entire generation to expect motion at all times. I genuinely think that TikTok changed visual communication forever because now the audience expects stimulation. That doesn't mean that everything needs to be chaotic, but it does mean that stillness feels different now. Stillness used to feel professional, but now stillness can sometimes make your brand feel invisible, and that is a gigantic shift. Now, the thing I have to say here is I don't think that static branding is completely dead. Not at all. I think good static branding means even more now, because motion graphics can't save weak design. You still need things like strong typography, strong hierarchy, good composition. Those things still matter so much. Clear branding systems, color psychology, consistency. If you don't have those basic things, your brand falls apart. But what I am saying in this video is motion should enhance the brand, not distract from bad branding. And I think we all know the exact thing that I'm talking about, where brands just throw motion everywhere, and it just kind of feels a little exhausting. Like, okay, calm down. I just opened my bank app. I'm not looking for a Marvel trailer. I just want to see how much money I have in my account. Sometimes brands confuse motion with personality, but the best motion branding, wait for it. I know you already know what I'm going to say. The best motion branding feels intentional. It supports the experience. It doesn't take away from it. And one of my favorite examples of this is micro interactions in apps. People really don't talk about these enough. When you like a post and then you get that little heart. When a button smoothly responds. When the app suddenly vibrates or animates. And when a loading screen feels so satisfying instead of super annoying. Those tiny details affect how a modern brand feels. And the thing that is very interesting to me is that users don't even notice this, but instead you could feel it. Good motion design creates emotional feedback. It makes technology feel human. And honestly, this is where brands start overlapping with psychology. Because humans naturally respond to movement. Our brains are literally wired to notice it. Back in caveman times, motion meant food, danger, survival. Now it means notifications, content, and algorithms. The apps are fighting for your attention at 1 a.m. And we're all just sitting there like, okay, one more video. And then one more becomes like 5. My point is that humanity evolved. Sort of. Okay, but seriously, motion graphics are so powerful because movement affects attention. And in a digital environment where attention is currency, that matters a lot. And I think especially my baby designers should pay attention to this shift. Motion design is still becoming incredibly valuable, even if you are primarily a graphic designer. Honestly, I think the line between graphic designer, motion designer, editor, and content creator is getting more and more blurred every year, especially online. Brands aren't hiring people to make logos anymore. They want people who understand short-form content, social media pacing, animation systems, interactive branding, video editing, storytelling, motion principles. Because right now, branding is becoming more cinematic. And I know that could sound intimidating at first, especially when you're someone who loves traditional graphic design. But I kind of think that the shift is exciting. Think about why you became a graphic designer in the first place. It's because you're excited about creating things, right? And design is growing into something that is more immersive. It is no longer trapped in static formats. Typography could move, layouts could react. Branding systems can evolve in real time. That opens up so many creative possibilities. And honestly, I think that's why the younger audience connects with certain brands so strongly now. Branding feels very alive. Old branding systems, they felt really corporate and distant. Motion branding, it feels more conversational, expressive, playful, reactive. It feels a lot closer to the way humans actually communicate, especially in an era of memes, reaction cultures, and live streams. And we can't forget short-form videos. That is why creators are becoming the brand themselves. Creators, they understand motion more naturally because they live inside those content ecosystems. A YouTuber's editing style becomes their branding. A streamer's transitions could become their branding. A TikTok creator's captions become branding. The personality is embedded into the motion language. And that's honestly so fascinating to me as a designer, because we are watching branding become less static and more behavioral. It's not just what a brand looks like anymore, it's how it moves, how it transitions, how it feels, how it responds. And I think the core idea that I want people to take away from this video is that static branding was designed for print, and branding today is designed for scrolling. That doesn't mean that traditional design principles disappeared. It just means that the environment has changed and we need to pay attention to that. Because great design adapts to the environment. That is one thing that has always been true. The designers who adapted to print survived. The designers who adapted to digital survive. And now we're entering an era where designers that understand motion will have a huge advantage, especially for an audience that becomes harder and harder to impress visually. We consume so much media now, so brands are constantly trying to create experiences and not just visuals anymore. And motion is the strongest tool for that. Not because movement automatically makes something good, but because movement creates feeling, and branding has always been about feeling. That's the part a lot of people forget. A logo alone is not magic. What matters more is the emotional association that people have with that brand over time. And motion helps shape that emotional experience in a way that static graphics alone can't. So no, brands aren't suddenly using motion graphics because it's trendy, or they shouldn't. The shift is a little deeper than that. It's how humans interact with social media. We moved from reading to watching, static to interactive, print to screen, and from viewing to experiencing. And branding evolved with this. And honestly, I think this is the beginning, especially with things like AI tools, interactive visual interfaces, AR and VR, immersive media, and adaptive systems. Branding is probably going to become even more dynamic in the future, which is honestly both exciting and slightly terrifying. Like, who knows, maybe one day we'll be designing a cereal box that actually makes eye contact with you. I think we all know that capitalism absolutely would do something like that. But genuinely, I think understanding the shift makes you a stronger creator. Because once you stop thinking about branding as something static and start thinking about it as an experience, your perspective changes a lot. You start designing differently. You start noticing the audience's behavior differently. You start understanding the way that certain visuals connect emotionally. And suddenly, you start noticing that motion graphics aren't just decoration. They are communication. And that is why every brand is suddenly using them. But I would genuinely love to know what you think. Do you think that motion-first branding is improving design? Or do you think that branding is becoming overstimulating? And honestly, what do you think is the best motion graphics right now? Because honestly, I think there are some really interesting conversations happening around this. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!